every day. This is it.
You go nuts. That's
Welcome
great.
to People Are Talking. I'm Richard Scher.
And I'm Oprah Winfrey.
So nice. Oprah was not feeling well last show, and it's nice to have you
A little
back.
under the weather.
Yes, nice to have you with us today.
It's good to be here.
Your Conscious is here from the Washington Post, who will be showing you later on in the program the very latest, wonderful, cute, imaginative.
Oh, wonderful little cute little things are so wonderful if your kids are going back to school. There are all kinds of neat little pencils and notebooks and little carrying cases. Didn't you love going back? It is the best time of the year if you're a child. For me, it was.
Or if you're a child, you want to watch this.
You get new
too.
shoes and new notebook paper. It's great.
And while we're talking about children, we're going to talk about your brothers and sisters and brotherly love. A wonderful story of brotherly love.
Back in 1973, can I interrupt just to say
Please.
this? But back in 1973, Emmett McGraw was in this terrible accident. The entire car was totaled. He lost one of his friends in that accident. And the doctor said that he would never walk or talk or see again. He was in a coma for the longest of times, but his brother Steve believed in love and caring. And he loved his brother, Emmett, back to life.
He really did.
He really did.
Living proof of that is Emmett, who is here walking, talking, and speaking. And he's going to do that, because speaking and talking are the same thing. But let's welcome them both. Two people are talking now, Steve and Emmett McGraw. Just sit right here. As close to me as you can. Come on closer. Steve?
Yes.
How does it make you feel to see your brother on a television show when he was given up for dead, walking, coming up, sitting down, and being part of the program? How does that make you feel?
Pretty wonderful, really. 8 years ago, I wouldn't even have thought of, had he just been able to do anything, breathing was a miracle at that time.
How do you feel today?
Well, I feel very, very good, really. It's happy to be here.
I know you are.
It's been a long way.
We have to go back to that accident.
That-
And this is some accident, really. 5 kids, I guess, who had been drinking, smashed into this car, and look what this car turned out to look like. And why don't you tell us about the accident, Steve?
Well, it was in 1973. Emmett was...
There's a car.
Yeah, there's a picture of the car. That's what he was taken out of. Yeah. An Impala going about 80 miles an hour on a narrow coast road. Emmett was down. He just graduated from high school. He was going to go to college. He was celebrating with some of his friends. And they were driving back on a narrow coast road, and out of nowhere, really, an Impala with about 5 drunk teenagers. I guess it was sort of a domino effect, because someone in the back seat hit someone, and it went up to the front seat, and the guy went like this. And when you're on a narrow coast road, it just swerved right in, with no warning, nothing. In fact, Emmett had his left arm out the window. You know, when it's a hot night and you just dangle. Well, that door was found 200 yards down the road, and Emmett's arm, actually this is his good arm today, but there's like 50 or 60 stitches holding it up. Glass was coming out a year later, because you know how the body, it's a foreign object, and how it pushes it out. I don't know if you ever, you get a splinter sometimes, and a month later you'll see it. Well, glass was still coming out about a year later.
How much do you remember about the accident that you can share with us today?
Nothing. It's what makes it so good. I mean, I can't remember it all.
Not even the Impala hitting the impact?
Nothing. Nothing. Now, a friend of mine, Chris Fallon, who also was in the car, lived. He flew out of the car and destroyed his back. And he remembers it all.
Well, see, what happened to Chris was, if you see the car, the picture, if you take a picture from this side of it, the door is wide open and it can't close, because what happened was Chris was sitting in the passenger seat. When it struck, Emmett was going about 40. They were going about 80. So you had a 120-mile-hour impact. He was flown out of the car, and then he was flipped and he landed, and he never lost consciousness.
Wow.
But then what happened is then the cars really collided, and that's when it did all the damage. It sort of went right over top of it. And he was very fortunate for the fact that...
Because he was out already.
He was flipped out. But what happened to him, they didn't really know what happened to him, but he couldn't walk for the longest time. But what it turned out was every muscle in his back was wrenched, pulled, torn.
What did they say? How did you and your family find out about this? What did they call and tell you?
Well, they called Emmett. Emmett was pronounced dead on arrival. They had to cut him out, and they thought he was dead. And then by the time my parents got down to Wildwood...
They called and told you he had died?
Yeah, he had to come down to identify the body. Now, in between that time, when my father and my mother got down there, he had a slight heartbeat. But they said, you better get him in a place that's equipped to handle someone in this condition. And so they took him to University of Penn, which has one of the finest intensive care units in the world. And there, when the doctors examined him, see, the thing about it is, they didn't know as much about brain damage as they know about the moon. They've landed on it. They can tell you it's not green cheese. That's about it. And when they saw Emmett, they had, in those days, they just had an EEG. Today they have a CAT scan. But I just talked to the doctor about 6 months ago. In writing the book, and hopefully a film is coming out about it, they've updated it. They don't want it in 1973, they want it in 1980. And so they put CAT scans. If you read the book, it says a CAT scan. Well, when he came in 1973, it was just an EEG. A CAT scan now is a computer which takes slices, thousands of slices, millions of slices of the brain, so you can see right where the damage is. But I asked him, would the outcome have been any different? He said, no, we can tell you a little bit more where the damage was. Emmett had the worst possible damage possible. He had brainstem damage, which is the base of the neck, which is the central switchboard for the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere.
So what kind of a condition was he in? Was he in a coma for a long time?
He was in a coma right when... See, this is another thing that I hope the book clears up. It's not a Hollywood coma. If you've seen Rocky II, where she's lying there, she has no IV, no intravenous, no machines, nothing. 4 days later, she wakes up and says, "Kill him, Rocky, kill him." It doesn't work like that, and especially in Emmett's case. He had 100 miles to go, and every day, if you got an inch, for about 3 weeks, he didn't do anything. And then he could squeeze your hand if you said, and they couldn't tell you anything. I mean, they really didn't know. All they did was they put bore holes in his head, and that's to relieve the swelling. Because if you, let's say, twist your ankle, it's going to swell. Well, the same thing happens with your brain. That impact, see, this is the damage that really happened. They said if a watermelon was in the back seat of Emmett's car and that impact happened. Now, Emmett didn't have any cuts into his head, but that watermelon, every seed would be moved about 1/millionth of an inch. And now that happens to every one of your brain cells. So obviously, you're in total confusion. Emmett had amnesia, aphasia, when he finally came to.
How long
But it was
that?
a long time before he came
Well,
to.
well, actually, I could say 8 months. They said 2 months. And what it comes down to is that the process was so slow that it was like that inch every day. It's almost asking, exact dates are hard to
What were the doctors telling you, though? Were they saying that he wouldn't come out of it, that he'd never be able to walk or see or talk, or that he would always remain?
Well, their whole therapy was devised to make the family accept that now you've got a vegetable, accept it. 90% of the therapy was directed toward the family, saying, you have to accept this fact. Because their attitude on life was, if you fall off a ship 4 miles off the coast, and you can only swim 2 miles, why should you even start swimming?
Why would you not accept what they said?
Well, because knowing my family and knowing Emmett, there were certain signs. If you'd like, I can give you one sign. I felt it. I don't know why, I just felt it. And now I look back on it, I don't know why I felt it. It's very strange, but a few things that he did.
Can you imagine if you hadn't felt it? What might have happened?
He'd still be there. See, this is the importance of the book, and the importance of the story is the fact that had I not and my family not questioned what the doctor said, had we not worked with him, he would be dead or he'd be a vegetable lying in a bed just...
But there was something inside of you that said the doctors are wrong. Was it because he could squeeze your finger, because there was some kind of response, or what? There had to be some sign.
Yeah, the first sign that I got, we have a little brother. At the time of the accident, we had a little brother, Kevin, who was 5 years old. Now, when Emmett was starting high school, Kevin was just born. And I was in college at the time. So I started Notre Dame, and then I graduated during those 4 years, right when Emmett had his accident. But Emmett and Kevin were inseparable. I mean, they slept together. Emmett, when he went on dates, he'd take him out. When he was a
Your
cat.
girlfriends love that, I know.
Yeah, they did enjoy it. He wanted to take him to the prom, wherever they went. When Emmett golfed, Kevin would carry 1 or 2 of his sticks and stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
And so, I mean, they really were very, very close. And now this is a true, what actually happened was Emmett was lying there and he wasn't even responding in any way. And I called home and I put Kevin on the phone. And I put the phone up and I said, just tell Emmett what you did. He can't talk back, but just tell him what you did today in school. And tears came out of Emmett's eyes. 1 or 2 just rolled down.
Did you remember what he said to you?
No.
No, I have no idea.
See, it was like I've heard it before where a violinist was in a coma or something, and his friends came in and played violin, and he wept. Now, I told the doctors that, and the first thing they said was, it's not unusual for a coma victim for his eyes to water since his eyes are closed all the time.
Yeah.
They refused to accept the fact, that there might be 2 or 3 cells in there that just, when his voice hit, it just clicked,
A thing I want to say is that I'm going to stick up a little bit for doctors. They can't be optimistic and say, oh, your son will come out of the coma in a month and he'll feel better, and then he dies. That really make the doctors feel, put down the doctors in a way.
It is so nice, isn't it, to hear this young man speaking today on this program?
It is good.
When we come back, we're going to continue this wonderful story, and if perhaps you have lived through something like this, prognosis for a loved one was absolutely terrible, and you said, no, I'm going to fight back just like Steve did. We want to hear from you. We'll be back.